Hi, welcome to our latest webinar. Today we're going to be talking about organising the next generation of young workers. And we're here with Katie and Chris today from the Yorkshire region. We're going to be talking about a really exciting project that they've both been involved in with the TUC, which is called the Summer Patrol. So yeah, take it away.
Cool. I'm Katie. I'm a young GMB member.
I'm Chris. I'm a young star member.
Cool. So, we need to talk about the participation?
Yeah, and there's going to be 3 ways to participate today. So you can ask us some questions, answer the polls, or comment and like things in the chat box.
Cool.
Okay.
So like Amy said, today we're going to be talking about the Summer Patrol for young workers that we've been organising in Yorkshire. So the kind of stuff we're going to be touching on is the big issues for young workers at the minute, how we found out these big issues kind of through our project, the do's and don'ts of talking to young workers, and what we did next with our project. So the Summer Patrol for young workers, this summer we spent 5 days going into workplaces across South Yorkshire to talk to young workers about their experiences at work. We spoke to over 200 young workers, and this is what we found out. So the big issues. When we were interviewing people, we kind of found that chronic understaffing was a big issue. So that a lot of the times when we couldn't speak to people, it was really because not because the management were kind of really anti-union, but it was because there was literally nobody on the shop floor for us to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like they were just that busy. There was not enough people at work.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about how busy and how stressed a lot of these young workers are going to be if we can't even talk to them.
Is that what it was like when you were there?
Yeah, like they couldn't even spare like 5 to 10 minutes to speak to us. Like that's kind of how we were pitching it to the management. It wasn't going to be a really long conversation. So, and a lot of the times it was literally like there was a manager and one other person in the shop. Like they literally couldn't talk to us. Another issue that we kind of found was lack of respect and dignity at work, which I think is like something that like I find in my working life as well. Like managers and supervisors often being kind of incompetent or worse. But I think something we realised as well is that a lot of these managers and supervisors are on like only slightly more pay than the people that they're managing, and a lot of them are young workers as well. So it's kind of like difficult to draw that line a lot of the time between like kind of who the person to blame in the situation is.
Yeah, and then they're not receiving the training to be able to deal with this chronic understaffing or to be able to deal with like training people up and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's like an expectation thing that like so many young workers are sort of like they don't know any different, or that they feel that this is something that they have to put up with just because their expectations of work are so low that a lot of people just feel like this is like the bare minimum is kind of to be expected.
And what kind of workplaces is this happening in?
So it's mostly this is on the high street. So in Sheffield, Doncaster and Barnes, and we kind of went up into high street stores, supermarkets.
Yeah, a mixture of like retail and kind of going to restaurants and
service,
pubs and bars, that kind of thing. Anything that you can like easily access just by walking in as a customer.
Yeah. Another issue was kind of like wage theft. So a lot of the time people were coming into work early and staying after work, after their shifts, to kind of make sure that they got all the work done and they weren't being paid for that time.
Yeah, I remember adding up once, someone said they come in 50 minutes every day early and they're not being paid for that opening time. And you add that up, someone who's been working at a store for like 5 years, that is like a serious amount of money that they're, I think calling it wage theft makes total sense because it is being stolen from them, that money.
And I think as well, like times like people being told to go home early as well when the pub or restaurant isn't that busy. I think as well, like there's something that was really common was tips being put into like a communal pot and then spent on like a work drinks night, where like members of staff kind of didn't feel that they had an opportunity to say like, actually, I would really rather just have my own tips to spend on what, if they need them to pay the rent. Like you don't really want to have it for your Christmas work drinks. 0 hours contracts, insecure work. I think it's like a big issue that people are having the movement. There was times when we would ask people like, do you get your shifts in enough advance? And they'd be like, oh yeah, like I get mine on a Sunday for the shift on a Monday. And they're like, is that enough time really for you, like in your life? And it's like a question of expectation.
What did they say to that? Is it enough time?
I think the expectations are that low that people genuinely think that is like enough time for them.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you put it into that context of do you think that is enough time, when you compare it to say what other people get and things like that, that's when people start to kind of think, actually I'm getting like a raw deal, like a bad deal here.
You know, like I'm on a shift pattern of work, and like we have ours. I know we're going to be working for like most of 2020. Like, and when I said that to somebody when I was interviewing them, they were like, "What?" I was just like it is possible for people to figure that out, and for your managers to do that. Just there isn't an expectation there, I think. Other issues, unsociable hours. That was like bar work, particularly, wasn't it?
Yeah, working late and then not being able to get home, so you have to get a taxi or something like that.
Yeah, I think then a lot of them just like public transport just wasn't running, and there was no kind of like the managers weren't considering that at all in the shifts that they were giving people. And then pay, obviously, which didn't come up as much as like you would expect, but it was something that we kind of probed on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for a lot of people, they like the pay is obviously an issue if it doesn't cover their rent, if it doesn't cover their transport to work, but ultimately what's affecting their lives most day to day is the fact that they can't choose when they come into work, and that they have to stay late, and that they're being harassed while they're at work, and that kind of dignity and respect and that kind of thing. So I think it's worth thinking about those issues.
I think as well there was like a lack of awareness in a lot of people that they would say, oh, I think it's like £7-ish, and it was kind of like they weren't really sure how much they were getting paid, which obviously like is another opportunity for wage theft, like if you're not entirely sure what your paycheck should be.
Or maybe it's as well that you maybe don't mind what you get paid.
Yeah, I think it's
interesting.
I think as well like there's a discomfort for some people as well in talking about it. Like I remember a few weeks ago I was speaking to somebody, and she like turned around to her colleagues, and when we were asking about pay, and said, you know, can I tell them that? And they were like,
wow,
tell them whatever you want. Like it's kind of like people, I think some people feel that they should be secretive about that.
How did you respond to that?
I was just kind of like, you know, you can tell us whatever you want. If you're not comfortable in telling us, that's fine. But yeah, she did tell us eventually, and it was like the minimum wage again. Like I think like I don't know if she was. We have a lot of times like people say like, oh, how much do we get paid? Like when their colleagues stood near and they kind of like are asking each other and like confirming it with each other, but like they never speak about it any other time. It's like quite clear from their interactions.
Or some people even saying, I get paid the living wage. And you say, so what is that? And then they'll say, and it's the national living wage, it's the minimum wage. So it's quite interesting how that is like cemented in people's heads. That,
the rebrand of living wage.
But obviously these are issues that like we'd expect to come across. But I think the way, and that's what we're going to talk about now, the way that we found them is maybe a little bit different.
Okay.
So like the Summer Patrol itself is an annual canvass of young workers' rights and conditions at work. So this was a kind of something that we adapted from the Norwegian TUC, the LO, who have been running their patrol for 30 years. So basically how it works is young trade unionists partner up, walk into businesses unannounced, asked to interview young work about their experience, and then like try to leave them basically with a good impression about unions. This might be their first time having a conversation about unions. But the way we kind of wanted to adapt it for our context was like to have a deeper organising conversation. So we sort of took some inspiration from the Better Than Zero campaign in Scotland. And we kind of wanted to establish a relationship with young workers so that we could sort of build power and build confidence in those workers in their workplaces. So we wore these lovely T-shirts when we went in and kind of had that sort of branding side of it. But also we were quite inconspicuous because we used this data capturing type form. So like you literally just had that on your phone, and it was kind of like you weren't going in with a massive clipboard and sort of being quite like in your face to management, which I think was like a successful way to get into places.
So you just walk along the high street and walk into anywhere,
and exactly
anywhere.
Like we were saying earlier, because we're going in and when we're saying you know, most of the times that when we're rejected from a workplace, it's because they're too busy. It's not because they don't want to talk to us. People aren't like scared to talk to us. They're happy to engage.
What was that like, just walking in?
It's like kind of weird at first. Like you go, like generally we would like go up to like and just speak to the first person you see and kind of like ask if there's a manager and sort of try to get like bits at least obtain permission. But yeah, it's kind of a weird like to sort of explain who you are and like I don't know. Like,
people do look a bit confused at first. Like what?
Because it's kind of a weird thing to do, especially like now. And I think in the high street as well, that's so unorganised as a sector, or in pubs and bars, like people don't expect trade unions to be in there or to like come and speak to them. Like it's kind of like, it's not like, you know, a really heavily organised kind of sector where at least there is some kind of knowledge of it.
Are there any really awkward moments? Or good moments?
One time someone did just say, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but that doesn't happen that often.
Me and one of my partners, like we went into like a stationery store, and like the manager was perfectly fine with us like talking to them, and it's like, all right, there's some people downstairs that might be free.
Okay.
And we went downstairs and we're like, oh, like we're trade unionists, like we're just looking to interview some young workers, and they were like, we don't want to talk to you, none of that. And like the manager was totally fine with it, but the workers themselves were like, no, don't want it. We're like, all right, okay, guys, that's fine. Yeah, the haters didn't want it.
But in general, it's completely easy.
Yeah.
And although people find it a bit strange at first, they relax by the end of it, and that's because of how we have the conversation.
Yeah, like it's ultimately we are just like normal people going in and having a chat with them. Like, and I think that's like, and it's people of their own age as well. Generally, like we're all young workers and all young trade unionists. So,
I think that makes a difference.
I think so. Like, I think sometimes like older people can talk to young people in a kind of in a more of a patronizing way, or sort of like well, like we're coming on to it, like the do's and don'ts and the kind of things that are really important to us, and to keep an open mind and stuff. And I think like if you go in as like a big trade unionist and you're like, yeah, like these are the issues that people are going to want to talk about, like we're kind of trying to go in and just say like we're young workers too, like
it's a lot more relatable for people. It's not like exactly what you said.
I think so do's and don'ts of talking to young workers. Oh, no, I've gone too far.
Number one, these are in no particular order, despite the numbers. So exactly what Katie said, we want to keep an open mind when we're going in. We're not going in kind of fishing for issues. Although we know we kind of got a picture of what the issues are, we're not going in and expecting these
and
kind of issues.
Did you go in thinking someone's definitely going to mention a particular issue that just didn't end up coming out? Or
I think at first, when we first started, I expected for example, pay to maybe come up more, things like that. And I was going in and kind of saying, and kind of expecting people to say things like that, and kind of saying things that I thought would trigger that. But then as we've done it more and we've done more training as well, I think learning how to kind of base it around what they're saying and base it around these survey questions that we have and stuff is quite helpful. Yeah,
I think as well, like sometimes you go into somewhere, like if you've been in a coffee shop, for example, you kind of know what might be the issues in the coffee shop because, you know, you've already spoken to somebody who works in, you know, the one down the road. So like you might have an idea and you might have something, maybe like a reference point, like if somebody brings something up to say, you know, like, oh, I'm paid £7, and you can say, well, actually, like in the pub across the road, like they make like this much money, you know, they make, you know, £2 more than that. Like, why do you think there's a difference there? And kind of like, that's the sort of conversations that like you can kind of have where you are reactive to what they're saying rather than going in and saying straight away, like, do you know in the pub across the road they make £2 more than you? Like it's kind of like you have to wait till those issues come out before you go in hot with your like agitational chat.
Yeah, definitely. And similarly, I think I went in expecting a lot of people, because most of the people talked to are not trade union members, and I thought maybe even they wouldn't necessarily know what a trade union was fully. But recently I have realised people do know what trade unions are. Yeah. You say to them, are you a member? And they say, no, I don't really know what one is. And then you keep talking, and they do. If you get them to actually engage with that, they actually do know what trade unions are. So I think it's just the case that we need to be making trade unions like relevant, a lot more relevant to their daily lives rather than just something that they know about.
Yeah, quite often people will say like you'll say, oh, like, do you know what a trade union is? And they say, oh, not really, but maybe kind of. And then you have to kind of like prompt that and say, well, like, what do you know? And like I had someone the other day who was kind of not very confident in what trade unions were, and then she literally said like like I was like, well, what do you think a union is? And she was like, workers' rights. And I was like, yeah, like you know, exactly, yeah, like you do know, like. And I think like, yeah, it's just sometimes people are a bit unsure because like, you're kind of going in with your survey questions, and then people like kind of
like
feel
it's a trick. Or...
Yeah, like it's a trick
like
question. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, we try and create an environment where it doesn't feel like it's a test or whatever. Which is why we make it. This is the second point. That's why we make it about their experiences and don't just go in with expectations. It's about having a normal chat with them, trying to kind of find out about their lives and stuff like that, and how work is for them more generally, I think.
I think as well, there's like you have to accept that this is a really big step for a lot of young workers, like, and a lot of people just like it's really quite an unusual thing to do now in 2019 to go into a workplace and speak to workers about their issues, like, and a lot of this will be the first time that a lot of people have had any interaction like that. I think as well, like, it's an acknowledgement that you're in their workplace where there might be like difficult colleagues or management around, and you're asking them to speak about something that's quite personal. So like we've acknowledged that this is a really big step for a lot of people, and you kind of had to not expect them to be gushing and like want to like, you know, start a revolution straight away as soon as you've had a chat with them. like it's, you know, this is the start of the journey for people, not like.
And it's a great first step for them to take.
Yeah, and it's just a chance for us to listen to them and them to have finally someone to talk to about these issues. And sometimes people talk to you for like so long and they're just like pouring out with all these issues. Definitely, No, and other times it's not issues that they're talking about. They're just saying how much they love their job, and that's good too. Like, we want people to like their jobs, and we want people to make changes, even if it's like somewhere where they already like. They should be able to have a say in like what happens in that workplace.
I think as well, like Chris was saying, it's the people don't feel listened to quite a lot of the time, and it comes back to that dignity and respect at work. Is like, we're going in and asking people genuinely, like, how's your day, how's your shift going, and like for sometimes that's the first time that anybody's asked them that. Like
that's quite radical.
No, absolutely. And I think like I found like that I was speaking to this guy in a vape shop in Sheffield, and like at the end of, we've been talking to him for ages, and he had all these problems, and his manager was terrible, and he was working in there by himself. He never got a break, and like he was serving customers around, and we were stood in there for probably like a good like half an hour, 40 minutes, like just and at the end, like my patrol partner asked him like what was this like as an experience for you, and he was just like, it's really good actually. I feel like I'm really glad that you've come in, because I feel like someone's listened to me, and I feel like my kind of voice has been heard on this. And I think that's like really just like an important thing to do. It's an important step to take for people.
Did you sense that as well, Chris?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, this is the first time that they get a chance to just share everything, and I think that's really important. We're not going in like just being like, you need to join a trade union. We're giving people this opportunity to be listened to and to feel part of something.
And it is definitely different to like a work rant with your colleagues, when it's like somebody like who's like specifically come out of their way to like try to get you to say like what's your problems and what your issues are. As well, some of the another do we've got is kind of like acknowledging and validating their experiences with kind of sharing something about ourselves and about our working lives. So like I was saying, like I was talking about, you know, I get my shifts, this far in advance, or like if you're talking about like bad management or something, or like, you know, it's an opportunity for us to say, you know, what our issues are at work and what we find.
And by grounding it in that personal thing, it makes it a lot easier for them to come forward with their stuff.
It's just much more like a natural conversation rather than like us trying to do data collection on our phones.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you think that makes a difference to the conversation?
I think it just kind of like opens it up a bit more, because like like we were saying, like it's a vulnerable thing to do, and like if you're putting yourself out there and like showing your own like you know, everybody has issues at work. It's not just you in this shop, and you're not like kind of by yourself dealing with it. Like, you know, whatever sector you work in, like there are problems and there are like things that are wrong.
People are genuinely like, when you say goodbye to someone, they're often like, thank you, like I didn't know about all this, or like this is really great. So I think it does make a big impact.
Our last do is challenge and empower people to take action. You know, encourage them to find more support for these issues in their workplace, or kind of identify leaders or other people with power to target in their workplace. So it's kind of like a lot of the time, like you have this nice chat with them, but it's like about like kind of almost demanding that they make that next step. Like if they've got an issue at work, like asking them what they're going to do about it, and like kind of we want to help them through that, and we want to like kind of build our own capacity, obviously, as trade unionists, to like to learn how to develop really good campaigns and things like that. But like these young workers need to do it for themselves too in their own workplaces, and find out how kind of widely felt the issue is.
Yeah, definitely. Should we move
on the don'ts. So what we're not doing, we're not recruiting, we're not going in and with our membership forms getting people to sign up and get their membership subs.
And that's not just because we're the TUC and we can't recruit to a specific union or whatever. It's also because going in and saying, hi, can you join X trade union is not going to be effective.
Why wouldn't that be effective?
So I think we want to root in their personal issues, and we don't want to just come in, get them to join, and then leave, and then kind of hope that someone will come and find them or whatever. We want them to empower them to make these changes themselves, to join with their other work, with their other colleagues and stuff like that, and actually make the change themselves.
I think it's like it's a massive step as well to join a union, like ultimately, like especially if you're in a workplace where maybe some of them are quite small workplaces where just having one member is it's really not going to do anything. So like you don't want to advocate people join a union and then they don't really get anything out of it. Like I think it's about rooting them in, like this is a campaign that you could win if you came together with your colleagues, and that's a trade union ethos. And then off the back of that, like that's quite clear that then you would organize a trade union because you've already got this collectivity with your colleagues. But like when it's just you by yourself, like it's kind of it's just a drop in the ocean, isn't it? So yeah, no subs, we're not signing people up. It's not providing an advocacy service, so we're not like as a TUC.
What do you mean by that?
Go Chris, go.
So I guess an advocacy service would be like kind of what we were just saying about if we went in and said, so what are your issues? And someone said, oh, well, I don't get paid enough. And then we kind of launched a campaign about pay.
Me and Chris, leading the campaign on behalf of like workers in
a particular cafe that we never worked in or anything. We want them to be the ones leading that. We want them to, and it's going to be slow, but
yeah, I think that's like it's really important that the workers in each kind of place are empowered to do it themselves. And like obviously like we want to give support and help to people, but it's not, it shouldn't be like led by us from the outside, because ultimately it's that's not where we work, and they're not our personal issues.
And that's not going to build like long-lasting power. It might work in the short term. They might get a quick win because their boss is worried about media pressure, but ultimately it's not going to like keep that union going for a long time or whatever.
And I think for a lot of young workers as well, like a lot of them expect to move on from that sector. Like if you working in a shop, a lot of them say, well, I'm only doing this because I'm at uni, or I'm only doing this until like, and there's this idea of like until, and there will be a next workplace. And obviously for a lot of people, know that isn't true, because like in the economy, they can't get, there aren't all these other magnificent jobs out there. But it's also like an expectation that like if people do move on, we don't want them to have just won this one campaign, for £1 more wage in their one workplace. Like if they've instilled with the ethos and that they feel the power and they feel empowered themselves to make that change, that will go with them from workplace to workplace. And I'll tell everybody about it.
Yeah, and also they might not need to move on. Like they're probably like their colleagues. They might even enjoy the work. It's just certain aspects that they want to change. And if they change that, then they can stay where they work and carry on with that.
Something else we don't do is talk loads about what unions are, or like kind of give them a lecture on trade union history. Don't come in hot and which we all love trade union history. But like sometimes there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place for chat about Toll Puddle, and it's not on the first time that you meet someone like who's
very inspiring stories.
But maybe for another time, perhaps. Like I think your first thing when you go in, and it needs to be relatable. You need to be talking about like what's happening now,
day to day, and definitely.
I think we've already mentioned it as well. Like, don't go fishing or provide a shopping list of issues. Like, it's really tempting as well when you're nervous, which I think like it's important to acknowledge that like I didn't like doing this when I first started doing it.
You didn't like what?
Doing the patrol. Like,
Revelation.
Get rid. Stop doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. No, like because I don't really like going into places and talking to people.
It's been very nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And so like you kind of the first temptation is to walk in and be like, right, here, look, you're bothered about your pay. Tell me about it. Like, and it's kind of like,
particularly if the conversation, if
Have
it's
you
a bit
been bullied?
awkward.
yeah.
I think
Are they stealing your tips? Did you pay for your uniform? Like, it's like, and like as trade unionists as well, like we all know, like honestly, when you look at the list of issues that like we've listed there, like we could have written them before we went into these places, but like but you know,
that's not the point.
Yeah, it's not the point. Like they've come from real people and real conversations. But yeah, they are difficult to have, and there is a temptation sometimes. I think when
it gets a little bit awkward and kind of when you're not really getting anywhere, you kind of might start to go fishing and kind of say, "How do you feel about this?" And we want to keep it open and for it to come from them because it's not going to work otherwise.
Yeah. Because I think it's important to say, like, not everybody is like going to come to you with like a massive organising opportunity. Like some conversations, like people aren't interested.
Something I like to ask people is, what if you could change anything at work, what would it be? I think that kind of gets people thinking.
Or like, would you recommend working here to your mates?
Yeah.
Or I don't know, there's just loads of things.
Which is just so much more open, and it could be something really small that they come up with.
But it comes with practice, and I think that's like what a lot of this has been, is like a learning curve for a lot of the like young activists involved in it. I think is like just avoiding the temptation to do all the other list of things that we've avoided the don'ts, but we've learned them the hard way. And then the last thing is like, don't expect change to happen overnight. Like I said, like
I think this is something we've felt as well, because we're having genuinely we're having these conversations and kind of hoping that loads of people come to the next meeting or whatever, and that doesn't always happen. This is like a slow process, and that's what this kind of organising is about. It is going to take a while, but that's fine.
No shortcuts. What would Jane say?
No shortcuts.
Yeah.
Slow and respectful work.
Exactly. Sometimes you walk out somewhere and you're like, right, these are definitely the ones. These people are going to take over the world, and then you're like, oh, probably not actually. Like this has actually like been really just a 15-20 minute, half an hour conversation, and that's a really massive first step, but it's not all the way to them.
The start of a journey.
Yeah. They're not going to be the next general secretary, or maybe. Hopefully, but not after one conversation.
A great claim to fame for you guys.
Yeah, we recruited them. I remember that. So after the conversation and our next steps, so during the conversation, we tried to get like a phone number from the workers during the interview.
And do they give you?
I think we get like phone numbers from like half, if not more, which is like a big step really when you think like a lot of people are expecting like spam.
And it's quite like giving a phone number to a random person who's just walked into work is a bit.
Can I have your number? What are your issues at work, and can I have your number? Like,
it shouldn't work, but it does.
But people do.
So the reason that we get the number is to try to follow up with them after.
Via text?
Yeah, a little text. So we've pioneered the use of through text, which is like a peer-to-peer software.
What does that mean?
So peer-to-peer texting is a way to have like multiple one-to-one conversations, but all at once. So where like blast texting, maybe you've had that before, is like maybe your union would text you to say like, vote yes for the ballot or vote no for whatever. I mean, they wouldn't say vote no for your ballot, but like it's the peer-to-peer is like a way to have an actual conversation with someone. So you can just have multiple conversations at once, rather than kind of a short interaction, or there's no interaction really if they just said vote yes or vote no. So it's like a great way to actually have a conversation with people. So we've been kind of trialing having using the texting to invite people to this sort of like house meeting style thing, where
what does that mean?
It's kind of like where everybody will, so we all sat in the room basically, and we went round in a circle and talked about like something that was really annoying us at work. And so like in that room, like you couldn't did you come to that one? No, yeah. Stuart was there.
But people share loads.
Yeah. And we like, you couldn't tell in the room who was like the workers that this was their first ever thing, or like the people that were trade unionists, like because we all went around and there was all something that was really annoying us at work that we could talk about. So it was that kind of like environment where it was outside of the workplace for these people, so it was definitely they felt freer and easier to talk.
Sounds really relaxed.
Yeah, no, definitely it was quite chilled, wasn't it? so that's kind of something that we're looking to do, and also kind of have like one-on-one conversations with the workers outside of work, or invite them to bring, maybe if they could, like, it's again like challenging to make the next step. It's like, are there colleagues that you can bring along and we can have a chat and see like what we can do to, again, it's not about advocacy, but like what kind of steps can we help.
And it's not going to be fast. It is these little baby steps of coming along to this meeting, maybe signing a petition and things like that, just kind of rolling people along. So
yeah, no, definitely. I think there's the megaphone petition site as well has been like a way to capture people's data again, to kind of have their contact details, and if they're not sort of ready to take, come to a meeting, but it's a good way to make the next step, is maybe to say, well, if you're committed to this, then sign this petition.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this in the Yorkshire area.
Yeah.
So is that just Sheffield?
So we did the initial patrol in Sheffield, Doncaster, and Barnsley, and then we've been doing these like mini patrols in evenings in Sheffield. Yeah.
You guys must be really starting to get another workers in Sheffield.
Yeah. We know
they know us. Anyway.
So you're coming.
Yeah. You're those weirdos in the t-shirts. Back again. And then when was it? Last week?
Yeah, we got to meet up with the Norwegian trade unionists again, which is quite fun in York, because they were over in York. So.
Yeah. So we did another patrol in York on Friday. So yeah, so we've sort of combined it all into these 5 days, basically, about the amount of time that we spent over the past few months. But yeah, it's been really exciting. It's been a really good way to get more active in like a wider trade union movement, I think, because there's loads of us from different unions. So I'm from GMB, Chris from USDOR, there's people from Unison.
And it's really like a chance to kind of we've been able to put our stamp on it and like set the next patrols and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Quite fun.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Have we
That's everything that we had in our.
Oh no! What did we learn? That's
the most important.
That's the most important thing. I think we probably covered it. What did we learn? So yeah, like it's really important organising training opportunity for young trade union activists. Like we've put our own stamp on it.
Yeah, as well as we've been not just talking to workers, but I've learned loads.
Well, like for some of us, so some of the people that have come along to it, like work in I work at university, like it's people that work in public sector where maybe there's kind of high density or of memberships, or you don't necessarily get to have a conversation with people very often about joining a union, or people are particularly in like kind of like vulnerable, or the workers that need trade unions the most. I think is like it's really challenging to have those conversations, and I think that's been like quite a.
But what about you guys specifically? What are you getting out of it?
For me, I think I've learned loads about how to talk to people,
Yeah.
And that's like the most important thing I think you can learn as a trade unionist and as a general like campaigner. So like before this I was more involved with like student politics and stuff, and this has completely like changed the way that I think about how to have a conversation with someone, not just in the workplace but around other issues as well.
And in what way?
I think it is just about basing it around people and not going in with expectations, with issues that you think they're likely to have an issue with, because people are so much more complicated than that.
Yeah, I think like the revealing a bit about like your own working life as well has been like a bit of a like something that I was maybe a bit uncomfortable with doing before, especially like when I speak to people in like smaller businesses, because when I was at school I worked in a small business where there was only me and kind of 2 or 3 other people that worked there, and I found it really difficult to deal with like when there was issues. It's kind of when you're in that like tight space and you know everybody, like it's kind of
including like the manager, you're probably like quite friendly with them potentially.
Yeah, like it's kind of like you don't necessarily feel like you can take the step, and so like speaking to people that work in a similar industry in a similar like place where they know everyone, like it's quite, I don't know, it's just something about it. I kind of, it's like sharing that element of it and sharing like your own experiences at work was like something that I hadn't really thought about doing before I had conversations with people.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, we had the patrol in South Yorkshire, so we've left it with a really kind of good knowledge of the issues in Sheffield. Like say they know who we are. young workers, like a really positive response. The stationery shop example was not common at all. Like most people like really wanted to talk to us.
Sounds like
And so it definitely shows that because we like look and sound like them, that they're gonna listen to us more and feel like they can be listened to by us.
And then just again, like there's a kind of we've seen that there's been a gap in capacity, and kind of a lack of training opportunities for young trade unionists. So this has been something that's been really important for us and all of our group, because we've not necessarily all had that before. So
what's been missing, do you think?
I think it's opportunities to have conversations with fellow young workers. Maybe it's some of us like working, like I work with people that are a lot older than me. So my experience of talking to young workers that aren't like my mates personally is kind of limited. So this has been like a good kind of training experience for that.
Yeah, and also I think the patrol's great because we feel a part of it. We're the ones going out doing the surveys. We're the ones kind of leading it to an extent, and I think that's really important rather than just where someone sat in a meeting with other people who are leading it. I think it's quite important.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I think we're going to move to some questions now. Why did you get involved in the trade union movement?
You go, Chris.
Okay.
What's origin stories? Here we
go. I mean, I think like I'm from Barnsley, and I think so like trade union is something that like it's kind of always been in an atmosphere of like knowing about trade unions and stuff like that. But the main way that I properly got involved personally was as a student when the lecturers and other staff at the university went on strike. I got involved in supporting that campaign and kind of providing like solidarity with the workers, and that was like a huge like learning curve for me of like seeing how important trade unions are. And how like empowered people are when they were on strike. So I think that's like the peak of like you can feel of like being part of that collective of like.
When you say feel part of a collective, what are you imagining in your mind when you say that?
I guess
is there a moment?
Just like moments like singing at like picket lines and things like that, and going to the pub afterwards, and when it's like
classic trade unionism.
That sounds very
It was cold. Like so when like, the snow is like this high and we're all like huddled together. I think that was like really powerful. Just feeling like you're part of something. I think when we're going to all these workers, they're likely to feel alone and like they're not being listened to. And I think that's the other extreme of feeling like you are the most powerful because you're together with everyone else. You're like the most powerful person ever. So, so being involved with that was like, story, I want to be part of that.
Yeah. I'm hyped now, Chris. No, I think like the same. Like I come from like a trade union members in my family and kind of had been around it. But I think like I like properly joined the union because just like a mate asked me to, and I think it's like the power of like face-to-face conversations and like the just like actually making the request of people and actually asking somebody to step up is like somebody just said to me like, you know, there's this event, like if you join you can go to it and come along and meet all these other young workers. And I was like, yeah, probably should do that actually, like if this is something that's quite important to me and quite important to my like my politics, like I thought, well, yeah, probably should join a union and go in and speak to some other people about it. But I think like the UCU strikes was like because we were both at uni at the same time, and at my uni in Manchester, like we had a similar thing outside of our like politics building where like I think all of our department were out on strike, and so like we were like out like just bringing them tea and coffee in the morning and stuff like that, and making them cake, and just like it was like a really just like nice friendly environment.
Definitely
definitely felt powerful being in the room sometimes listening to them.
Great. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to go to some questions from our viewers. So, with the rise of social media, I like this one. With the rise of social media, how can young members use this to their advantage?
I think a lot of the time people get a bit carried away with like as much as I love peer-to-peer texting and digital organising techniques, like I think people sometimes think, oh well, we can just do it all on social media, or like that's where the young people are, and so like that's where we need to go. And obviously, like we was going to speak to people in their workplaces. I think for young members, it's like I know a lot of people have got like kind of work group chats on WhatsApp and things like that, and I think that's often a place where maybe managers aren't. So if you can't speak about it in the workplace, maybe you can speak about it like your issues on the work WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And what about social media
in general?
In terms of, I think we have to be careful. So we're going in. We don't want, like we said, we don't want to do an advocacy campaign. So I think we could easily go in and say, today we talked to these workers and they felt like this, and put that all over social media and make a big splash. And that might cause a bit of a stir, but that's not organising. That's not what we're going for. So I think when it's complementing the organising, because I think that's not building this power in the workplace. It's not making these connections between the workers that work there to feel like they can do things, I think. So I think when it's complementing that, so at this stage where we are with the campaign, we can talk about what we're doing, but I don't think it makes sense to use social media in that kind of big flashy way at this stage. It's more about complementing what you're doing on the ground.
I think sometimes as well people can get wrapped up in like, oh well, this needs to look good on Instagram, and it needs to look really good in the pictures. And I think like sometimes
that doesn't matter.
Sometimes organising doesn't look good in pictures, like because like if you're having a one-to-one conversation, like that's not like the most dynamic. Like this picture of me and you, if we were in a workplace talking,
terrible.
Like it's really boring. But like you would feel so fired up, Amy. It'd be unreal. Like, yeah, honestly, it'd be crazy.
So what tools work then? So one-to-one conversations.
What
else? We had a house meeting.
Yeah, moving on after the one-to-one into like a kind of house meeting where people go around and have that chance to share with a wider group.
Yeah,
is quite important.
Yeah, I think like as well, sometimes a lot of people don't feel necessarily comfortable in front of a massive room of people. So maybe just smaller meetings with them and their colleagues, I think, as well, like, and people that are particularly like their like close mates or allies in the workplace, and feeling like, I think you just want people to feel comfortable, like when they're already kind of talking about something that's quite personal and quite a big issue for people. Like you don't want to go in and be like, right, stand up in front of this massive room of people and tell us all about your workplace. Like,
what are you gonna do? Yeah. Okay, that's great. What else have we got?
What polls have we got going on?
Do you think that there should be more education for young people while still in school or college about trade union?
Yeah, this is something I would like to do at some point. Is I know that some trade unions and the TUC run like things where they go into schools and kind of explain what trade unions are, and I think that's a really important thing for people to kind of have it where they see it as something that they could be part of when they get a job. Did
you learn about trade unions at school?
Not really, not that I can think of. No.
I think like it comes along with like all political education, and it's often a big part of unions campaigns, isn't it? Like, and I think like a lot of the chat's been about like votes for 16 and 17-year-olds, and obviously like that has to come along with political education, and especially like with more young people now having to work, like if they're still at school or going to uni, like more and more people work at the same time, and they kind of people are going into work and they need to know how to protect their rights and how to fight for them. With education. Love it.
Okay, why do you think there are so few young trade union reps, and how do we resolve that?
Well, neither of us
are reps.
Do you know any young trade union reps?
So
two. I know two.
Yeah.
Oh, two.
A few.
I think I know two. Yeah. I think like for me personally, like I think it's the amount of time that the training takes. I think I would like really struggle to get that time like justifiably off work, and I know obviously like you get kind of facilitation time, and the union can sort that for you, but I think it's just like in a workplace where a lot of stuff goes on and we're understaffed already, like it's kind of like difficult for me to say to my colleagues like, I'm doing this, I'm going to take this week off work for us to go do the reps training. Like it's kind of like a massive time commitment.
Do you think it's important to be a rep?
I think it's definitely the more reps we have, the better. But I think there are lots of other ways where you can get involved and like make change, and you don't have to like have that kind of official title of being a rep necessarily.
Yeah, I think there's like all activists and all members should be like empowered to take the action in the ways that they can, and like just like having that specific workplace rep title like is not the only way to do that. Like everybody should feel like they could be part of the campaign in their workplaces.
Great. What would make it easier for young people to be involved in unions?
I think
it's a big question.
Yeah. Well, I think you can see it like inside and outside of unions. So like people that are already involved, young people that are already involved, I found are often like encouraged to take on their like young members positions in the rep, like in their branches. And like even if they didn't necessarily want to do that, maybe they wanted to go for like branch secretary or like the chair of their branch. They're like, oh, you're the young person, you take on that young member's role. And it's kind of like sort of shoehorning people into that particular.
Has that been your experience?
Not in my branch. I've not really been active in my branch.
Okay.
But it's a lot of people that I know are just like, if they're involved in their branch, they've been kind of put in the young members position rather than anything else that they wanted to do.
Yeah. And then I think it's also, so someone I work with said to me, I don't think trade unions should kind of be part of your everyday life. It should be like, I'm a member, but it's just because something might happen at work and I need that kind of insurance policy. And I don't think that's this person's fault for thinking that. I think that's just the kind of general kind of ethos that that trade unions have kind of tended to go towards, where it's an advocacy thing, where it's providing a service, whether it's insurance or cheap Alton Towers tickets or something like that.
Who does that? Good joke.
No comment. Whereas, so I think if we make trade unions relevant to people's everyday lives, which they are and they can be in some places, that's how young people will come flooding in. And give empower young people exactly what we've been trying to do with the patrol. Not just see it as we just need to recruit young people or put them on a committee position, like you would say.
Okay. Well, on that note, I think we will finish it there. Cool. Feeling incredibly empowered and inspired by both of you, Katie and Chris. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks for watching.